Today we're gonna be breaking the law with a speaker. You're gonna have to stick around to see what I mean. What's up, internet? I'm Brian McDuff, aka BMac, and welcome to another video. So yes, indeed, today we're gonna be taking a look at this bad boy right here. This is the new Brane X portable speaker. And this is a speaker that quite literally does break a law with the amount of bass that it's capable of. More on that in just a few minutes. But first things first, I do need to give a quick little thank you and a shout out to Brane Audio for actually sending out a Brane X speaker for me to be able to check out, use, and enjoy. So Brane, thank you. I appreciate you. But with that having been said, let's get right into breaking this baby down, starting things out with the design of the Brane X and what makes it unique as a portable Bluetooth speaker. One of the first things you're gonna immediately notice about the Brane X is how reasonably sized it is, despite its big sound that it's capable of. It's got a pretty standard run-of-the-mill design with an integrated silicone handle that makes for pretty easy portability. You have a speaker grill in front covered with a mesh fabric material, a metal plate backing, and a matte plastic finish on the top and bottom with some sound dampening feet down there, and an overall design that reminds me of some of the other similarly priced premium Bluetooth speakers already on the market. The Brane X is only available in one color, which I'm okay with because that color happens to be matte black. And it even packs an IP57 dust and water resistance rating, which makes it pretty resistant to dust, but even gives it water submersion protection up to 1 meter deep in water for up to 30 minutes. On top of the speaker, you do have touch sensitive buttons for Bluetooth pairing, Wi-Fi setup, bass control, volume control, mute toggling, and even an Alexa activation button. But one of the things here I was a little surprised to see omitted and that I'm kind of bummed about is the omission of any kind of track controls, which means you do not have the ability of skipping songs, backtracking songs, or even playing or pausing your music right from the speaker itself, something I personally do view as pretty much a necessity on any Bluetooth speaker, especially since you're probably not gonna be using that bass control button or even that Alexa activation button nearly as much as you would track controls. But on the back of the speaker, you are gonna notice that is where you have your power button, you also have your aux port button, and your DC in port for actually charging up the speaker. All of this with LED status indicator lights that shine through that front mesh grille covering. But what's really making the Brane X speaker so unique is not so much what's going on the outside, so what's going on the inside. Housed within the Brane X, you've got 4 Class D digital amplifiers that combine for a total output of over 200 watts of power in this little guy, a built-in DSP or digital signal processing engine that could calculate over 500 million EQ calculations per second, plus 4 waterproof microphones for your accurate voice recognition, 2 3/4-inch tweeters for your highs and widening the soundstage, 2 2.5-inch mid-range drivers with stereo separation in those mid-frequencies, and then 1 large 6.5 by 9-inch RAD or Repel attract driver for all of your bass. And that is the real difference maker right there. That RAD setup, that's what's allowing for all the massive bass that this thing is capable of. The Repel Attract driver is special technology that uses custom magnets to actually cancel out internal air pressure forces that would otherwise inhibit deep bass. Now, I don't wanna get too technical on you, but basically there was this pretty smart guy by the name of Joseph Anton Hofmann that came up with a Hofmann Iron Law that more or less stated that you need either a very large speaker enclosure and or a lot of output power in order to deliver a lot of bass and sub bass from a woofer. But the brains of the smart people over at Brane Audio, did you see what I did there? Maybe I didn't do anything, actually. Maybe that's where the name comes from, now that I think about it. But the smart people over there at Brane Audio did figure out a way to more or less break that Hofmann Iron Law with this RAD, or Repel Attract driver technology, where it could literally offset the pressure limitations within a smaller woofer enclosure to allow for a heck of a lot more bass in a smaller size. The result being an insane amount of bass coming from such a small portable speaker with the Brane X. I'll get more into sound quality in just a minute, but that RAD technology we have here, it is pretty rad and worth understanding. See what I did there? The RAD technology is rad. I don't know what to say, my puns are pretty punny today. Okay, I'll stop. But in all seriousness, the RAD technology is the real deal. It's not a gimmick, I've extensively tried it out, and it works, and not only does it work, it is downright impressive. But before I get ahead of myself, we also do want to talk a little bit about connectivity here and the kind of app features and tech specs that the Brane X is capable of. First up, let's talk about Bluetooth and audio codecs. The Brane X supports Bluetooth 5.1 with audio codec support for SBC, AAC, aptX, and aptX HD. I definitely would have liked to see some additional high-resolution Bluetooth audio codec supported here, namely LDAC, but at least we're getting aptX HD. But we can't forget about the fact that we do also have that aux-in setup here if we want some analog listening. Now in terms of app compatibility, there is a dedicated Brane companion app that gives you access to additional controls and features for your Brane X. Now I will say that at the time of making this video, I have found that Brane companion app to have some clunkiness and some connectivity issues. Hopefully by the time you're watching this video, those little bugs and kinks will have been worked out and that the app will be more stable. Not a huge deal. The app isn't really an app that you're gonna use all the time anyway once you have your initial settings set, but still, at this price point, not an issue you wanna be dealing with. But within the app is where you do have the ability of setting up the Wi-Fi connectivity, your Alexa voice assistant, streaming settings, bass level, LED brightness, EQ balance, and maybe a few additional settings, plus that's where you're also gonna be conducting your firmware updates as well. I will say I do appreciate the fact that the Alexa voice service is built in. It allows the speaker to pretty much perform as a premium Echo speaker whenever I'm connected to Wi-Fi. And your streaming options are gonna include Spotify Connect, Pandora, Amazon Prime Music, SiriusXM, iHeartRadio, Deezer, and TuneIn, but that does leave out Tidal, and a pretty big one, Apple Music. That's how things stand right now. Maybe they'll change in the future, I don't know. You do also have Apple AirPlay 2 support, but that's still not quite as seamless as just being able to stream your Apple Music through voice control. And then last, but most certainly not least, you do also have the option of actually grouping speakers together, should you find yourself wanting another Brane X. But now let's get to the good part. Of course, what makes this speaker so special, that of course being the sound quality of the Brane X and how this thing sounds with the monster bass that we already know it's capable of. Like we already covered, this thing puts out an insane amount of bass. No other way to describe it. This thing is a bass beast. If I were to take the speaker and put it in front of you while you were listening blindfolded and I asked you how big you actually think it is, you probably would think it's 3 to 4 times the size that it actually is, with the amount of power and impactfulness that this thing is capable of. Hands down, if you want some of the biggest, baddest, boomiest bass that you're ever gonna hear in a smaller lunchbox-sized Bluetooth speaker, the Brane X is just not gonna disappoint. But I know what you're thinking, what about the rest of the EQ spectrum? Because as much as some of you would like to disagree with me, there is more to music than just the bass. You have a surprising amount of detail and clarity throughout, no matter what it is that you're listening to. And this does surprise me because I'm gonna be honest, I was expecting the rest of the music mix to be somewhat compressed or degraded because of how much bass this thing is putting out. But that's just simply not the case. Things do fall apart a little bit when you're really cranking this baby up to past like 80% volume. That is where the mix can get a little muddy with some harsh peaks in certain areas of the mids and the highs that could come across as a little harsh on your ears when you're listening at those louder volumes, with maybe a little bit of compression and some noticeable distortion if you're listening at very high volumes with some pretty busy musical mixes. But generally, unless you're cranking this thing up to 100% and listening really closely to it, no matter what volume you're at, you're gonna love the sound quality that this thing is capable of, especially the bass, because I do. Now in terms of EQ adjustments, you do have manual EQ control that you could set for the speaker itself through that Brane companion app we keep talking about. And I actually found this, you don't have to tweak it a whole heck of a lot. I did give it a slight V balance because I wanted to round out the bass a little bit while also giving it a little bit more oomph, while at the same time bringing out a little bit more presence and clarity in the vocals and in the instrument mix. But one thing I should point out is that the speaker by design is pretty directional. The mid-range drivers project outwards from the front speaker grille that's covered in this mesh fabric. Basically, the speaker's not meant to be 360, so if you're listening to it, you're gonna wanna listen to it probably on an elevated shelf facing towards you. It's perhaps not the most elite listening experience that I've heard in a Bluetooth speaker, but it's pretty darn close, and I keep saying it, but with the amount of bass that this thing is actually capable of, it more than makes a name for itself, and it's definitely a speaker that I'm gonna be bringing around with me over the next couple of months. But this is still a Bluetooth speaker, so how long could it actually expect it to last for? What's the battery life looking like on the Brane X? Brane is promising up to 12 hours of audio playback on a full charge, but that is when you're listening at moderate volumes, which I'm assuming is probably only around 30 to 50%. In terms of recharging, you're gonna plug in using the barrel charger, and that's gonna take you around 3 hours to fully charge the unit. Kind of a bummer that there's no USB-C, but not a big deal for me. I'll use whatever charger I need to. But more importantly here, if you're listening at higher volumes with your bass level set to a higher setting, that battery life is gonna take a pretty substantial hit, and I'd say figure closer to around 4 to 6 hours of battery life instead of the advertised 12. Yes, I know that's only about half or even less than the battery life that's advertised, even though the fine print does say that that's at moderate listing levels. But I'm gonna go on a limb here and say that even if it's only 4 to 6 hours of battery life, that doesn't really bother me. I'm okay with only 4 to 6 hours of listening time at those higher volumes with the amount of bass that this thing is putting out, because the performance just speaks for itself. And even then, 4 to 6 hours of all that listening is still a decent amount of battery life to get out of a speaker of this size with that level of power. Room for improvement in the future, but it's not all as bad as it sounds, and I do think that the bass and the quality and the loudness makes up for it. But with all that having been said, here are my final thoughts on the Brane X portable speaker, and whether or not it could be your new favorite portable Bluetooth speaker. With the Brane X, you are getting a sharp-looking portable Bluetooth speaker in a smaller, easy-to-lug-around package, but still with massive bass and some pretty premium sound quality. If you love your portable speakers and you love your bass, the Brane X is most definitely a speaker worth looking at. And even if you're not a bass head but appreciate more bass than would be typically possible in a speaker of this size, the Brane X is still worth taking a look at. It is not a perfect speaker. I would have liked to have seen some more Bluetooth high-resolution audio codec supported, the ability to stream Apple Music through Wi-Fi, better battery life at higher volumes, and a more reliable app connectivity experience, but all around, I'm really liking this bad boy. This is most definitely a Bluetooth speaker I'm gonna bring with me to the beach this summer to get that party poppin'. And even just generally, the Brane Audio brand, definitely a brand I'm gonna keep my eye on moving forward. As always, for the latest deals, prices, promos, and information for the Brane X portable speaker, you can of course always head to my affiliate link, bmac.link/BraneX, or of course, as always, there will be clickable links in the video description box and in the comment section below, so check those out. It has been a minute since I've had a nice listening session with my bass-heavy hip-hop bopping from the 2000s, baby. So I'm gonna go do that. I will see you guys in my next video.